The fleeing boy listened in terror as a rumbling engine roared behind him. He spun his head around in panic and saw only dust billowing in the distance, rushing rapidly closer to him. Nino knew it had to be the farm owner coming to capture him, and in fear he dashed into a nearby ditch, searching for a place to hide. He curled his body tightly, praying with all his heart to every god he knew, hoping they would protect him and keep the farm owner from finding him. Just a few days earlier, his father, who had spent most of his life as a hired farmhand, had signed a contract with the farm owner on Nino's behalf. At just 10 years old, Nino was forced to become the farm owner's young laborer, but the young Nino did not want to live his entire life working for someone else like his father, so he seized a moment when the farm owner was not paying attention and fled the farm. Not only that, to save enough money for his escape, he also took the farm owner's most treasured gold pocket watch. When the farm owner learned that Nino had escaped and stolen his beloved gold watch, he flew into a rage and immediately gathered all the workers, ordering them to split up and chase after the runaway boy. He even announced a high reward of 50 pesetas. Nino's father hurried to apologize to the farm owner on his son's behalf, but the farm owner angrily shouted him down.
Orbo, sparisci dalla mia vista. Non farti vedere finché non troverai tuo figlio.
Meanwhile, the fleeing Nino arrived beneath a large tree they had agreed upon in advance, where his sister had already been waiting for a long time. Nino quickly changed into the new clothes his sister brought him, then instructed her to throw his old clothes in the opposite direction to confuse the farm owner's hunting dogs. After saying goodbye to his sister, he continued his escape. He ran with all his strength, not daring to stop for even a moment. Only when night fell did he hide inside a stone cave, quickly eat some dry rations to regain his strength, and spend the night in constant fear. Early the next morning, the farm owner brought the old clothes Nino had discarded, which were found by the hunting dogs, and went to Nino's home. The farm owner believed that after escaping the farm, Nino must have had someone helping him, and that person was very likely Nino's sister. But Nino's sister kept shaking her head and refused to speak, so the farm owner began to pressure her psychologically.
Ma tuo fratello sì. Lì fuori ci sono lupi, cinghiali, scorpioni sotto ogni pietra e uomini cattivi che possono fargli del male. Tu vuoi che lui soffra? Nemmeno io. Dimmi dov'è. Dimmi la verità. Vado a prenderlo, così non gli succederà niente, d'accordo?
Frightened and believing his words, the sister feared something would happen to her brother and finally revealed the direction of his escape. Their mother tried to beg for her son, but the farm owner struck her hard across the face. After walking for who knows how long, Nino finally saw a building standing alone in the sparsely populated wilderness. This was the bus station in Nino's escape plan, where he was supposed to catch a bus. As long as he got on the bus, he could quickly shake off the farm owner's pursuit. Seeing the bus station so close, the exhausted Nino felt a surge of energy and instinctively quickened his pace. But suddenly, he heard the rumbling sound of an engine coming from behind him. Seeing the dust rising in the distance, Nino immediately became tense and panicked inside, and the source of the swirling dust was the farm owner chasing after him. Terrified, he rushed into a nearby ditch, desperately searching for a place to hide. He curled his body tightly and prayed earnestly to every god he knew, hoping they would protect him and keep the farm owner from discovering him. As the farm owner drew closer and closer, Nino's fear had already reached its breaking point. His breathing grew rapid, his face tense as he shut his eyes tightly, ready to submit himself to fate. Fortunately, the flying dust provided him with excellent cover, and Nino was not discovered by the farm owner. The farm owner immediately questioned people all around the bus station, asking about Nino's whereabouts, but found nothing at all. Nino could only watch helplessly as the bus he had planned to take slowly pulled away from the station. In this sparsely populated place, buses were rare, and the next one would not arrive for another 4 days. Watching the bus depart, Nino's eyes filled with despair. The farm owner, having failed to find Nino, still had no intention of giving up, because Nino was not only a runaway laborer from his farm, but more importantly, Nino had stolen his most beloved gold watch. He swore he would personally capture Nino, even if he had to chase him to the ends of the earth. He left one of his men at the station to continue watching, while he led others forward to keep pursuing. Having missed the bus, Nino could only continue his escape on foot. On the road, constantly on edge, he would panic and hide even at the sight of an ordinary passerby, and while hiding from someone, he accidentally rolled down a steep slope, but fortunately clung desperately to wild grass on the hillside and narrowly survived. Using every ounce of strength, and after a long struggle, he finally climbed back up the slope. He did not dare stop to rest and immediately staggered forward to continue his journey. He then realized that his compass had been damaged during the fall and could no longer be used. This undoubtedly planted a huge hidden danger along his escape route. After walking for an unknown length of time, he encountered a man who was giving water to livestock. Watching the clear, sweet water slowly pour from the flask, the unbearably thirsty Nino unconsciously licked his dry lips. He patiently waited near the man until night fell, then slowly approached under the cover of darkness. He quickly removed his backpack and nervously transferred the man's food into it, but he was still discovered by the alert man.
Qui tutti abbiamo fame.
Non mangio da ieri.
Non ti dai il diritto di rubare il cibo a un altro uomo.
As the man continued to move closer to him, the panicked Nino finally turned and ran, only to be struck down by the man with a stick. In the chaos, Nino scrambled to his feet and instinctively pulled out the dagger at his waist, threatening the man not to come closer, but the man ignored the warning and kept advancing toward Nino, forcing the frightened boy to turn and flee once again. He did not even have time to retrieve the backpack that had fallen to the ground. Without his backpack, Nino was left completely destitute, a homeless child with nothing at all. After walking for who knows how long, he spotted a building in the distance, and where there were buildings there might be people, and where there were people there might be food and water. With this thought, he cautiously scanned his surroundings, then ran toward the building with growing hope. He quickly drew his dagger, gathered his courage, and rushed inside, only to find the place completely empty, with nothing but a broken old well. Nino picked up a stone and tossed it inside, waiting a long time without hearing the sound of it hitting water. Staring at the dry, abandoned well, Nino once again sank into despair. Hungry, thirsty, and exhausted, he could no longer hold on and finally collapsed to the ground. After an unknown amount of time, a man discovered the unconscious Nino and tried every possible way to wake him. Sensing danger, Nino immediately raised his dagger, attempting to protect himself, but young and extremely weak, he was no match for the man, who quickly overpowered him. In order to save Nino's life, the man began soaking strips of cloth with water and slowly nursed the boy back from the edge of death. When Nino finally woke up, he realized that the person who saved him was the very man who had been watering the livestock earlier. Not only did the man no longer blame Nino for stealing his food, he also willingly shared his supplies and even returned the backpack Nino had accidentally dropped before. From that moment on, the two traveled together across the wilderness. The kind man even gave Nino his own headscarf to shield him from the harsh sun. But with the man's food already limited, and now shared between two people, they were forced to ration their meals, eating one day and going hungry the next to conserve supplies. When there was no food, they talked to distract themselves from hunger. When hunger became unbearable, they lay beneath trees and used sleep to fight it. Meanwhile, the farm owner who had been hunting Nino for days split his men into two groups and was slowly closing in on them. The man suddenly noticed that his usually gentle dog began barking wildly, and when he looked in the direction of the barking, he saw two figures in the distance rapidly approaching. Sharp-minded, the man immediately realized they were likely the pursuers chasing Nino. Thinking quickly, he told Nino to find a place to hide. Hearing this, Nino immediately began searching for cover. The two pursuers soon arrived and aggressively questioned the man, trying to find out where the boy Nino had gone, but the man firmly insisted that he did not know Nino at all. Facing their interrogation, the man responded calmly and cleverly, revealing no flaws. Just as the pursuers began to believe him and prepared to leave, their hunting dog suddenly began barking furiously at the nearby dry well, and one of the men immediately set dry grass on fire and threw it toward the well opening. Hiding at the bottom of the well, Nino was tense and panicked, breathing as quietly as possible, terrified of being discovered. Still uneasy, one of the pursuers raised his rifle and fired directly into the well. Fortunately, the boy was lucky enough not to be hit. To divert their attention, the man quickly claimed that he had seen vultures circling in the sky over a nearby valley the day before, suggesting the boy they were searching for might already be dead there. Although his words successfully distracted the armed pursuer, the other man suddenly asked a sharp question.
Da quanto tempo non pesci, Moro?
Non lo so, un paio d'ore. La mia vescica non tiene a lungo, sto diventando vecchio.
E dove l'hai fatta?
The man had not relieved himself since waking up that morning, but Nino had done so earlier at the corner of the wall before the man awoke. Not knowing the exact spot, the man gambled and pointed in a random direction, but he pointed the wrong way and was brutally beaten by the pursuers. Seeing that the man still refused to reveal Nino's whereabouts, the pursuers changed tactics and began speaking gently.
Io non ti conosco, ne ho niente contro di te. Dimmi che è successo al ragazzino
e ti lasceremo andare con i tuoi animali.
But no matter how they tried, the man continued to insist that he had never seen Nino and had no idea where the boy was hiding. To force him to talk, they slaughtered the man's sheep right in front of him. Those sheep were the only possessions this homeless man had left. Watching his last belongings destroyed, the man was filled with grief and rage, yet he still did not reveal Nino's hiding place. The pursuers then threw the slaughtered lambs directly into the dry well. Seeing one lifeless lamb after another fall past him, Nino, hiding at the bottom, was overwhelmed with sorrow and fury. In the end, the pursuers even threw the man's beloved dog into the old well. Nino could no longer stay hidden, and he quickly stood up and began climbing toward the opening. Through a crack at the edge of the well, he saw the man who had protected him being tied to a horse by the pursuers and tortured during their interrogation. They rode the horse in circles, dragging the man behind them, sometimes fast and sometimes slow, cruelly tormenting him. The battered and wounded man also saw Nino clinging to the edge of the well. He subtly shook his head, signaling Nino not to act rashly, but at that moment, Nino noticed the rifle standing beside the well, and after gathering his courage again and again, he seized the chance, climbed out when the pursuers were distracted, and grabbed the rifle. Seeing Nino holding the gun, the pursuers believed the young boy would not dare to shoot, and they raised their hands while slowly approaching him. At that instant, the hunting dog sensed danger and lunged at Nino, and Nino decisively shot the dog, then swiftly worked the bolt and chambered another round. Nino's actions completely stunned the pursuers who had been preparing to move closer. One of the pursuers on horseback seized the moment and tried to raise his rifle to shoot Nino, but he never expected the sharp-eyed boy to fire first and knock him off the horse with a single shot. Because the rider was hit, his aim shifted, and the bullet he fired accidentally struck and killed his own companion. Although the mounted pursuer fell from the horse, he only suffered a wound to his ear, and unwilling to give up, he immediately reached for his rifle to fight back, only to be subdued once again by Nino. Despite having just endured unbearable torture, the kind man still did not want to take a life, and he decided to let the pursuer go. The pursuer could only turn away in anger and leave quickly. After the pursuer left, Nino and the man buried the companion who had been accidentally killed, then hurried away to prevent the injured pursuer from returning with more men. But because the man had been badly beaten and tortured, his body was extremely weak, and they were forced to stop and rest after not going far. From that moment on, the responsibility of caring for the injured man fell entirely on the young Nino. Meanwhile, the pursuer who had narrowly escaped soon reported everything to his farm owner leader. Furious, the farm owner secretly swore that he would personally capture the runaway Nino, even if he had to chase him to the ends of the earth. On the morning of the second day, Nino said goodbye to the injured man and went alone to fetch water from a nearby source. While he was immersed in the joy of discovering cool well water, he suddenly heard the sound of someone speaking. The boy on the run immediately tensed up and stood to look around. He thought the pursuers had finally caught up, but instead saw a strange man sitting on a wooden cart with crippled legs. Facing the man's seemingly kind questions, the cautious Nino said he was only there to fetch some water, to protect himself. Nino also lied that his father and brother were herding sheep nearby. Hearing this, the man hurriedly explained that he was not a bad person, and the crippled man told Nino he had cooked a pot of good soup and sincerely invited him inside to eat. Although Nino remained on guard, after days without a full meal, he was completely tempted by the offer and carefully followed the man inside. Fortunately, the man did not deceive him, and Nino finally enjoyed a satisfying meal. It was the first full meal Nino had eaten after many days on the run. Just as Nino rose with gratitude and prepared to leave, the man suddenly told him there was still plenty of food in the kitchen and that he could take some with him if he wanted. Trusting his words, Nino happily walked into the kitchen, but he did not see any of the food the crippled man had mentioned. At that moment, the kitchen door suddenly slammed shut, and Nino was locked inside. Nino cried out desperately inside the room, but received no response, and only then did he realize the crippled man was already gone. He quickly pulled out the dagger at his waist and desperately carved a hole in the wooden door, then reached through it to undo the wooden latch outside. Although he injured his hand in the process, Nino eventually managed to escape. He rushed out of the room and saw the crippled man driving the donkey away at speed. It turned out the man had done all this simply to steal Nino's donkey. Furious, Nino chased after him, picked up a stone, and hurled it at the crippled man. The crippled man fell to the ground and begged for mercy in panic.
Devo andare in città a cercare mio fratello. Qui da solo sto diventando matto. Sento delle voci. Qui. Io non volevo chiuderti dentro, ragazzo. Sei un ragazzo buono. Non ti faccio pena.
And hearing this, The kind-hearted Nino decided not to pursue it further, but unexpectedly, the crippled man took advantage of Nino's inattention and attacked again. And enraged, Nino struggled free and smashed the man repeatedly with the stone until he finally stopped moving. Panicked, Nino believed he had accidentally killed the crippled man, and without time to think, he quickly led his donkey away from the scene. Nino had planned to bury what happened deep inside himself and tell no one, but as soon as he returned to the injured companion, the sharp-eyed man noticed the wounds on Nino's hands. Under repeated questioning, Nino had no choice but to tell him everything that had happened.
Ho ucciso un uomo, il padrone della locanda.
Sei sicuro?
Io non lo so. Voleva l'asino, l'ho colpito con una pietra. Quando me ne sono andato.
After hearing this, the kind man decided to take Nino back to the well, and the two set off in that direction. What they did not know was that the crippled man was not actually dead. Even more unexpectedly, the farm owner who had been chasing Nino arrived at the well ahead of them with two subordinates. The crippled man lay on the ground, helplessly begging, hoping the three people before him would save him. What he did not realize was that these three were not kind men at all. The farm owner showed no concern for the crippled man's life, focusing only on extracting information about the runaway boy Nino. After he had asked everything he wanted, the crippled man, now useless, was shot and killed on the spot. The farm owner threw the body into the well and continued the pursuit of Nino. Not long after they left, Nino returned to the area with the man. By sheer luck, Nino narrowly missed crossing paths with the farm owner chasing him. The kind man stared silently at the bloodstains on the ground, then searched around and eventually found the crippled man's body in the well. He pulled the body out and carefully performed a simple burial ceremony. The two rested there for the night and continued their journey the next morning. Soon they arrived at an abandoned station, where they finally encountered the farm owner who had been pursuing them all along. The man quickly told Nino to hide inside a room while he stood outside with a gun, determined to face the farm owner and his two men alone. The cunning farm owner tried to persuade the man to step aside. He claimed he only wanted to take Nino back and that none of this had anything to do with the man. But no matter what he said, the man resolutely stood guard with his weapon to protect Nino. Seeing that persuasion failed, the farm owner offered a large reward, hoping the man would hand Nino over. Yet even faced with the tempting offer, the man showed no hesitation. Left with no other choice, the enraged farm owner attempted to take Nino by force, and a fierce gunfight erupted. The man was a retired soldier, agile and highly skilled, and he quickly eliminated the farm owner's two subordinates. But he soon realized that the panicked Nino had disappeared. He hurried to search and finally found Nino inside a wooden shack, only for the cunning farm owner to suddenly emerge from behind the door. Sensing danger, the man turned instantly, but he was too slow, and the farm owner shot him, sending him tumbling down the stairs. In the end, Nino still fell into the hands of the farm owner. Just as Nino was being forced into a vehicle, the wounded man charged back one last time, yanked the farm owner out, and quickly strangled him with his crutch. The farm owner struggled desperately and fired his pistol, and in the chaos, the bullet struck the already injured man again. In the end, although the man successfully strangled the farm owner, he succumbed to his wounds and closed his eyes forever. No matter how Nino cried or screamed, he could never wake the man who had given his life to help him escape. Nino followed the man's example and held a simple burial for him, then took all the belongings the man left behind and continued wandering toward the distant horizon. I am a film enthusiast. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.